A little background on me first. I'm 23 years old and live in Canada for the time being. I've just been accepted into Harvard Law, and so I'm slowly preparing to pack up and move. Due to virus, I lost my job. Every single dollar that I made while working since the age of 16 was being saved up for my college tuition, as Harvard is very pricey, and for my moving costs and apartment close to campus. I have a younger brother. He's 18 and has never worked a day in his life because he would rather spend his days playing Xbox or whatever. He doesn't know what he wants to do in the future, and that's completely fine. I support him, and I understand it's not easy deciding on a career path. Lately, though, my brother's been asking my parents for money almost weekly. They gave him a couple hundred, and he blew that on games. My father then refused to give him any more, and they both turned to me instead. My father says that since I'm receiving free money, the CERB, for people who lost their jobs due to virus, I should be able to give my brother a couple $100s every month, since I'm older and I should take care of him. 90% of the money I make goes straight into a savings account for college, and the rest I use for necessities. I live in an apartment with 2 other friends, so I don't have to pay as much. I rarely ever buy anything I want for myself, unless it's a special occasion like my birthday. I told my dad that I could give him a little bit, but as my roommates have also lost their jobs, we don't have as much income available to us. I've been giving my brother $100 a month, but neither my brother nor my parents think it's good enough, that I should provide him with more money. And I explained that I wouldn't be able to give him any more than that because I still have to provide for myself. They absolutely lost it at that. Called me ungrateful and a terrible sister. My mother and brother aren't speaking to me anymore, saying I abandoned my brother at this difficult time, and they completely spun the truth to the rest of my family. My friends say I'm not in the wrong, but my entire family disagrees, and I feel terrible now. Update. My parents are threatening to call my landlord to try and get me evicted, so I can move back in with them, so then I would have to give my brother money in exchange. I know there's little chance of anything actually happening with this, but it still worries me. Not the a-hole. Your brother isn't your kid. It's nice that you're giving him money already, but if he doesn't appreciate that, maybe you shouldn't give him anything. If he's 18 years old, he's old enough to have a job. Maybe give your landlord a call and warn him about your parents trying to get you evicted. They'll more likely side with you if you reach out first. Why could your landlord evict you from your parents just calling? They said they would pay him off or create some stupid lie. Our apartment complex has a lot of rules, all of them very rational, that I follow. So my parents believe if they tell him that I've been breaking many of these rules, he will want to evict me. Not the a-hole. You didn't birth him. He's not your problem. It's not free money. It's money to help tide you over because worse days are coming. Cut off the funds and leave as soon as you can. Make sure your money is in a bank account they have no access to. Not the a-hole. You don't owe your brother anything. Honestly, even giving him $100 a month seems overly generous to me. As for your parents threatening to get you evicted, I wouldn't put too much weight on that. As long as you're paying your rent, it is incredibly difficult for a landlord to evict you. I live in BC. Personally, I would minimize contact for the time being. Paying for your own schooling is stressful. I'm in the same boat. And as much as I love my siblings, I can't afford to be helping them out either, especially at that age where expenses are mostly from desire rather than necessity. I, 29 male, have a 41-year-old sister, B, who has an 18-year-old daughter, L. B was always one of those parents who views their child as faultless and exceptional, even when they, aren't. When L was in first grade, B pushed to have her admitted into the gifted program, despite having been denied previously due to not meeting the criteria. B would always brag about how brilliant L was, how she read several classics by 4th grade, had won the county spelling bee, etc. But whenever I talked with Elle about it, she admitted that she read the first page of a few of the books and stopped because she couldn't understand them, and that she was her classroom runner-up in the spelling bee, but never got to the school level. These exaggerated claims about Elle's otherworldly intelligence, literally a phrase B once used, only got worse as she aged. Elle was praised as brilliant for getting B's on tests and getting a 23 on the ACT, for writing short stories that were later revealed to be plagiarized, and much more. Though Elle was indeed a bright and sweet girl, she was nowhere near the caliber her mother made her out to be, and the praise eventually got to her head. She was a senior this past year and applied to 6 colleges in total: Vanderbilt, Harvard, Yale, Princeton, USC, and Stanford. Obviously 6 very prestigious institutions, With an ACT score of 23, a GPA of 3.1, virtually no extracurriculars, and no safety schools. I've worked as a college admissions counselor before, and I tried to talk to both of them about it, to get her to apply to a state school, and did as much as I could, but they dismissed me, saying she was sure to get in. Sure enough, she was rejected from all 6 schools. By that time, it was too late to apply to any state schools, and she wound up having to apply to community college. Elle was devastated. It only got worse and more embarrassing for her when B called the admissions departments at Harvard and USC, cursing them out and telling them how insane they were for rejecting such a brilliant girl. I was over at their house last weekend, taking precautions of course, and she went on yet another long rant about how Elle was the most brilliant child she'd known, and she should have gotten into those schools. Elle started to cry when she brought it up again, and B started yelling about how awful the colleges were to do that to her. I'd had enough, and I told her that had she actually done research into any of those colleges and what they needed for admittance, Elle would have been spared the embarrassment. It's not the fault of the colleges that they have standards, and Elle didn't meet them. B had set Elle up for a lifetime of disappointment when she'd made her out to be more exceptional than she truly is. B started screaming at me and told me to get out of her house. I've gotten several messages from my family about what an a-hole I was since. I think I was right, but I could be wrong. Am I the a-hole? Not the a-hole. Your sister is a bad parent setting up her kid to fail. Sucks for the daughter, but you tried your best before this all happened. Not the a-hole. Your sister is delusional in setting her daughter up for failure. Not everybody on planet Earth needs to be or even can be the smartest. There's absolutely nothing wrong with being an average to above average human being. Not everyone needs to attend an Ivy League university that they're going to spend a decade paying for. Plenty of smart, bright, even highly intelligent people graduated from public universities and completed general ed requirements in community college. I hate this toxic sentiment some people try to instill in their kids. Not the a-hole. Your sister seems to be living in a delusional fantasy and using her daughter as a pawn to live that fantasy out. Happened a lot at my high school, a rigorous high school that placed a lot of kids into the schools you mentioned, but also had a lot of slackers with entitled parents living on cloud 9. Even the smartest of the smart kids apply to a reasonable safety school. My husband's daughter, we'll call her Clara, recently got engaged and he wanted to throw them a party. This is important to him, as he feels our daughter together got better birthday parties, and this is a point of contention with him. I wasn't even around when she was having these lackluster parties, so I don't know how it is my fault, but somehow it is. At first, I agreed, but when I thought about it, the groom's mother is banned from our house. She called me a W to mutual friends, and she got drunk at our house and announced we are bad people for getting married and having a baby, because she would never have done that to her son. And she bragged about how she never introduced a single boyfriend to her son, because he wasn't okay with it. That is her choice, but personally, I don't think it is healthy to let a child run your life to that extent. She also breastfed her daughter at a dinner party, which is fine, but caused her to spill food all over my couch. When I was annoyed, she told people I'm anti-breastfeeding and made a joke about how Clara will never want to bring her future children to our house. Needless to say, she is banned. My husband already told Clara about the party. He then had to backtrack and explain that while he still wants to throw her a party, the groom's mother cannot come. Clara got irritated and said she didn't want the party then, and that he was making her event about me. She said I should have thicker skin and not care about what this woman says, and cited that her fiancé offered to pay for our couch. My husband asked me to reconsider, and I said no. There really isn't time to book a venue, so we're just going to cancel. He is now mad at me and thinks I should let go this one time. I'm just not okay with being disrespected or having someone say my daughter should not exist right out in front of my daughter. Everyone sucks here, other than Clara. Husband should have run it by you first. Edit. He did, so he's definitely not the a-hole. Groom's mom sounds like a right pain. You should understand that this is about Clara and not you, and avoid her for the night. She's gonna be at the wedding, and this could cost you your own invite, so you're gonna have to learn to play nice. Everyone sucks here. The groom's mother sounds like a nightmare, but you're making this all about you and your beef with her, while Clara, who should be the main focus, gets lost in the mix. Surely you can find some kind of compromise to make this work, but you seem completely uninterested in celebrating Clara and are fine to just cancel her party entirely. That's just so cold and selfish of you. Not the a-hole. You have some non-negotiable boundaries that must be respected. The mother of the groom did her damage. That bridge is burned and can only be rebuilt with an honest apology from that woman, which I doubt you'll get because she sounds just nasty. Stick to your guns on this one and do not compromise. Do not bend to let that vile woman back into your house. I promise you she will only start another scene and have more trash to talk, and you shouldn't have to take that. My fiancé, Aaron, 26, and I, 23, got engaged recently. His family insisted on an engagement dinner and my parents agreed. I handled restaurant reservations and menu and everything else. I also bought a pink dress that cost me $250. Aaron was against it because he thought it was expensive and thought it was irresponsible of me to spend that kind of money on a dress, even though I paid for it using my own money. He kept complaining about it day and night, telling me to lie about the original price if his mom asked, so he won't be embarrassed. I told him to stop it. We had the dinner at the restaurant, and while we were all sitting, I noticed him asking others for their glasses of water. I was baffled, but didn't pay much attention. I was talking to Mom. Husband was in the restroom, when suddenly I felt cold water on my lap. I looked towards him and saw he had poured a glass over my lap. He then proceeded to dump 2 other glasses, with both hands at the same time at other areas of my dress. I literally yelled out while I quickly got up from my chair. I asked repeatedly, "What the duck is going on with you?" He responded with, "What?" I was wondering if this dress was like one of the Barbie's magical color reveal dresses, because of how ridiculously expensive it is. He meant that he was trying to figure out if this dress had other colors when dipped in water, because he thought it was so expensive. I wanted to yell at him, especially when he started laughing, but the restaurant got involved. I decided to just end the dinner celebration, which made him beg me not to. I refused to hear him or his dad out and demanded everyone to leave. I left the restaurant with my parents, and they dropped me off at the apartment. Aaron stayed with his family and had his mom leave me several walls of texts, shaming me for reacting so poorly over a prank. Wasn't sure if she knew exactly what happened, till she scolded me about the dress and saying that it was my fault for buying an expensive dress from the beginning. I haven't called him since then, though he did text several times saying it was a prank. Not the a-hole, not the a-hole, not the a-hole, not the a-hole, not the a-hole. Definitely not the a-hole. But you really want to marry that dude. A dude that wants to make decisions about your money, who embarrassed you because he's stupid, whose parents support such crappy behavior. I would think twice about marrying him. His mom also called me my name, Snob, as my last name once, because my dad told her he could help her get a better car. She got offended and took it as an insult and a way for my dad to flex and show off his wealth. But he meant well. He's genuinely a good person who loves helping strangers, let alone people he knows. OP, they're doing that so when you're married, he would take over your finances. This is a control tactic. The entire point is to make you second-guess yourself, so they go, "Oh, let me take care of this since you're not able to do it responsibly." Then they take over your money. This is entirely about controlling you. He spilt the water as a punishment for not doing what he wanted. He pretended it was your fault for not listening. He's showing you that the aggression will ramp up once you're married. So, my wife and I got married during the early days of virus. We couldn't go on our honeymoon due to the lockdown, so we put it on hold. We've been married for more than a year now. My older brother got engaged during virus and is having their ceremony this year. Due to the nature of my job, I can only take leave twice a year. I'm a doctor and work most weekends, and I'm quite burnt out, so we decided to book a relaxing honeymoon overseas at a resort. Due to the leave issue, I booked the trip for the day after my brother's wedding, which was my last available leave for the year. My wife told me I should probably speak to my brother first before we book, in case they have any issues. I spoke to my parents and brother and everyone understood, so I thought it would be fine. Here's when things started to get weird. 2 months before the wedding and trip, I was on a call with my parents. I mentioned booking the trip, and they asked what trip. I told them the honeymoon I'm leaving to after the wedding. Then they said, "You're going on a trip right after the wedding?" That was weird because I know I spoke to them about this. The next day, I get a call from my brother asking me whether I booked a honeymoon the day after his wedding. I told him I did, and he seemed quite upset. He said, "Won't this take away attention from their special day, and can't I do it some other time?" I told him we spoke about this, and he said it was fine. Also, I have no other time in the year where this is possible. He said he remembers now about the conversation, but he only really processed it now. So, I don't know. It seems like everyone is so quick to give advice, but not really listen to what you are saying. I don't think anyone here is a bad person. It's just frustrating that we took the time to speak to people, but it's obvious they weren't really paying attention. Now, I'm feeling guilty about my trip. People don't seem to understand that working in a hospital is very different to an office job. I can't just take leave whenever I want, and the environment is incredibly stressful. Edit. Due to the cost of the wedding, they won't be going on a honeymoon straight away. Probably delayed for a while until they can save up. But we have also been saving since our wedding, which is why we have chosen to go overseas to this resort. So, am I the a-hole? Not the a-hole. You spoke to them. Your brother even mentioned remembering it, and all was fine. It's not your fault he didn't process it at the time. Not that I'm sure what there is even to process. You're leaving the next day. How is that going to detract from his wedding day? I guess they are miffed that OP will fly to his honeymoon while they stay at home. Maybe they hope if they mope around enough, he will give them their honeymoon trip as a present. Not the a-hole. Not the a-hole. Unless you go around telling everybody you are leaving for your honeymoon and how much of a great time you're going to have, you are not taking the spotlight. He is having his wedding. Be the start of the show, and then you disappear for some time to spend time with your wife. Unless you are hiding the fact you will be in the same resort as your brother and will be shadowing them the entire time. Or spending his wedding dressed in a Speedo because you can't wait to go on vacation.